All right, back live with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop, 7:39, and we've got a primary coming up this summer where you're going to have a lot of choices on the ballots, everything from who's going to represent you in Congress to who you want to be the nomination for governor, attorney general, secretary of state, all here in the state of Illinois. So there's going to be a lot of action on the ballot. Now, there's already been a lot of action in one particular race where you've got multiple candidates vying for the Republican nomination for governor. One of those candidates joining us here in studio, and that is Jesse Sullivan. Jesse, thanks for taking time with us. How you doing this morning?
Yeah, doing great, Greg. Thanks so much for having me in.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. I'm going to have you to the top of the hour. So a lot to discuss. Governor J.B. Pritzker, he's going to sign the budget today. It's the state's largest spending plan in Illinois state history. It's got $500 million more for public sector pensions. It's got hundreds of millions for public safety. It's got lawmaker pay increases. It's got a pilot program for guaranteed income. There's a lot in this budget. From what you've seen, would you sign something like this?
Absolutely not. I would not sign it. What we see in Illinois is we have not a revenue problem, we have a spending problem. It's spending like drunken sailors. And you would think we would learn the lesson paying the highest taxes in the entire country. And what do we see for it? Do we actually see the benefits of that as Illinois taxpayers? No, we don't. And so we, during that graduated tax hike amendment where the voters got a say, they said, no, we don't want to raise people's taxes in the state of Illinois. But what do our lawmakers keep doing? These increased budgets, the highest in history in the state of Illinois, it's got to stop. We've got to stop the spending. That's why I'm the only candidate in this race that signed the Taxpayer Protection Pledge. That means I refuse to raise taxes on the people of Illinois. I will veto any new bill that comes across my desk that raises taxes on Illinois families. It's enough is enough. We need to rein in spending, cut down the size of government, not keep increasing it.
But this budget, it has $1.8 billion of tax reductions. Temporary tax reduction for the grocery tax of 1% to 0%. You've got the looming gas tax of either 2.2 or 2.4 cents on a gallon, but that's going to be pushed back to possibly 2 tax increases next year. But this does have some tax credits in it. What would you approve that aspect and not the spending plan?
Oh, yes, I would reduce them, but I would make them permanent. We need a permanent reduction in taxes. And J.B. Pritzker will try to sell you on it's don't believe your lying eyes. 120,000 people left the state of Illinois last year for a reason, because they feel like I am paying ridiculously high taxes. I want to go to the free states where I don't have to pay these high taxes. And, in Illinois, let's look at J.B. Pritzker, 2 cents increase that was going to be automatic on the gas taxes, where he's doubled them. He's going to give a 6-month temporary relief before he decides to raise them on us again. That is not real relief. It's an election year gimmick. $2,700 is what the tax increase has been under J.B. Pritzker, permanent on Illinois families. He gives us $500 tax relief for 1 year as an election year gimmick. He wants to buy the election on TV with these commercials trying to convince us he's fixed anything. He went to the federal government for nearly $200 billion that we received. That is such a missed opportunity. We could have actually done structural reform in the state of Illinois. Instead, we've just, kicked the can down the road. It's all patronage and corruption in the state of Illinois, and that continues under J.B. Pritzker.
Well, and I'm trying to best understand what happened in the past 3 years where when the governor took office, he was promoting the graduated income tax. Right as the pandemic hit, Senate President Don Harmon was asking for $40 billion from federal taxpayers just for Illinois programs. Ultimately, they got about $16 billion over during the pandemic. But now they claim it's fiscal management. Where are they wrong?
They have this idea. The Democrats and the far left liberal solution to everything is let's tax people out of our debt problem. That is not going to work. What we see is everyone flees out of the state. Then you have less people in the state of Illinois you can tax, and you've got to tax them even more. It's a downward death spiral. We need a commitment to growth. We need someone who we need a business-friendly person in there who I was helping businesses to grow around the world, investing in them. What we need is a low tax environment. Where's everyone going? Texas and Florida. zero income tax states. We need to look more like Texas and Florida, not New York and California, where we're raising taxes on everybody. And that's the type of governor I would be, as you could expect. We are going to lower your taxes, make this a business-friendly environment.
We're talking with Jesse Sullivan. He is a Republican vying for the gubernatorial nomination come the primary June 28th at 7:44 now with Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. So we'll hear a lot more about the budget today with Governor J.B. Pritzker signing that in a package, of course, the appropriations, the budget implementation, and the tax package. But part of that includes hundreds of millions for public safety. Some police groups were looking for more, but I would imagine that that's also going to be highlighted here. Is this going to help? Is funding technology and retention for police officers and a variety of other programs, including mental health screening for police officers? Is this going to help with what some see as a problem across the state with growing crime rates?
The one thing this legislature should have addressed during this session that J.B. Pritzker passed was this anti-police bill. That's what everybody calls it around the state. We've gone around to law enforcement around the state. They said we have not had a seat at the table. And if they would have had a seat at the table this time, they would have repealed this anti-police bill. It does crazy things. Like if somebody's in here trespassing, the police can't remove them. They can just come in, write them a ticket. It's 2-day holidays on electronic monitoring. It's crazy stuff. Releasing people on with no cash bail, just sending them right back out in to do terrible crimes. Like law enforcement does not feel supported in this state. And if they would have listened to a single one of them, they would have repealed this anti-police bill. And when I'm governor, I'm going to step in and do that. It's the reason why we've had the largest number of active sheriffs around the state supporting me, endorsing me in our campaign. They know we're going to be the most pro-law enforcement state in the nation when I'm governor. And the reason they backed me is at my core, I am protect and serve. I was over in Afghanistan as a civilian intelligence analyst, deployed over there for a 7-month tour. And on that, we were helping set up local police forces. And we had a lot of guys who lost their lives doing that work. And it's really, there's no greater love than this, to lay down one's life for a friend. Our law enforcement officers that are sacrificing themselves every day around our state deserve to be listened to, and they do not feel appreciated under this current administration.
We're talking with Jesse Sullivan. He is a Republican vying for the GOP nomination for governor. The June 28th primary, of course, it's coming up faster than we anticipate here. But you're up against a variety of other Republicans, State Senator Darren Bailey, former State Senator Paul Schimpf. You've got Richard Irvin as well. We may talk a little bit about just, I guess, the climate of the race. We'll touch on that briefly. But when you're talking about crime and you're talking about the Safety Act, which was the Democrats and the Legislative Black Caucus initiative, they did pass in the House. It didn't clear the Senate, but they did pass in the House a provision to address some of the things you brought up, like, the 2 days of conditional release for individuals and a variety of other language changes. But during that debate in the House, the sponsor, State Representative Justin Slaughter, he essentially looked at the Republicans who were critical of the Safety Act and said something to the effect of, the stench of racism is strong coming from that side of the aisle. What's your reaction to that? And if you were to be governor, how do you bridge that divide with a possible Democratic majority in either the House or Senate who are pushing for these types of things?
Yeah, that statement was ridiculous. The dividers among us want to say, oh, you are either for Black lives or blue lives. And it's no. If you care about our minority communities, then you are going to support our police. 95% of the deaths, the homicides that have happened in the state of Illinois, are against minority communities. So if you care about our Black and brown brothers and sisters as I do, then you are going to support our law enforcement. You're not going to defund them the way they have been. So this racism stuff is absolutely absurd, and we have to push back against it strongly.
Again, we're talking with Jesse Sullivan. He is a Republican running for the gubernatorial nomination. June 28th is the primary, and we'll, of course, hear from other candidates in the weeks ahead. But I do appreciate Jesse being in studio with us. Got to take a commercial break, but when we come back, let's talk a little bit about the climate of Republican versus Republican here. But I do want to talk about digital currency. I've been watching this space since, it came out in 2007, 2008 or whatever. And it's been fascinating to watch all the different players that are involved. How can Illinois be involved more? We'll talk with Jesse Sullivan about that coming up here on WMAY. All right, back with Springfield's Morning News, live in studio. I'm Greg Bishop, and Jesse Sullivan's with us. He's a Republican vying for the GOP nomination for governor. Just checked the Illinois State Board of Elections website, April 27th. So sometime next week, they're going to actually be certifying the ballot. So we'll have then the true indication of who you're going to be able to vote for come the June 28th primary. But Jesse, let's touch on a few other things here kind of rapidly. Of course, with the primary, there's 7 or 8 different Republicans contending. Your kind of reaction to the atmosphere of the politics at this point of Republican against Republican?
Yeah, I'm an outsider. I'm a political outsider, and I honestly hate politics. And the reason why I do is because of these insiders and the way they approach politics and campaigning. They act as if honesty and integrity, oh, maybe that matters outside of politics, but hey, this is politics. Honesty should apply inside of politics also. And so that's how I'll always conduct myself. Is I think Illinoisans actually want solutions. They want people who are going to move the state in the right direction. Enough of living in the worst run state in the nation. I actually love my neighbors and I love Illinois and I hate our politics. That's why I'm stepping into this. And so with me, you're always going to see, I'm always going to tell the truth and try to be honest in the way I approach this. Unfortunately, that has not been the case with some of my opponents.
One thing that we were talking about a little off air is your platform. We did touch on taxes, crime, corruption, addressing those issues, but you also are focused on education. Talk a bit about what a Sullivan administration would do for Illinois' educational landscape.
Yeah, school choice. We need to move back towards parents being able to be involved in their children's education again. 2/3 of our kids in the state of Illinois are not reaching grade level standards in math, science, and English. That is terrible. We need to be preparing them for the future economy and jobs here. Instead, what are we getting? Indoctrination. We have this focus around CRT and, teaching our kids not to love our country. We also have, this sex ed stuff that was passed that is absurd. In 2nd grade, teaching children, gender identity is a choice. I am a parent to 5 young children and, 2 foster children. And I want to raise them. I'm a constitutional conservative. I believe government has a limited role. There's the role for our religion and faith. There's a role for our families to teach values. And right now we have government that tries to encroach into every area of our lives. And it's wrong in the way that they have been indoctrinating our kids. Parents, like teachers, don't want to teach this. I have a lot of family members that are teachers and they're saying, I'm not going to teach this stuff. We've got to get that out. When I'm governor, you're going to look at the Illinois State Board of Education and we are going to clean house and we're going to get back to excellence in our education again and giving parents choice on where they want to send their kids to school because we need competition in the school system again. And unfortunately, especially the Chicago teachers unions, they've become a wing of the Democratic Party. And that has not been good for our school kids. We need competition back in that system to get excellence again.
Jesse Sullivan with us, Republican vying for the GOP nomination for governor. June 28th is the primary. Another thing I did want to talk with you about, and we've only got about a minute and a half.
All right,
so
we'll keep it short.
Digital currency, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. What's the place for Illinois under a Sullivan administration when it comes to that space?
Yeah, Illinois has gotten used to being last in about everything. I want Illinois to be first. I want to be the innovation governor. I want to actually bring innovation back in. We can create the industries of the future. And Mark Andreessen created the original internet, brought it all from U of I, brought it all out to the Bay Area. I want Illinois to be the place where the future of the internet is created. And if you're against big tech and the censorship they have, this is actually the market-based solution. It's a decentralization of authority, not centralized authority. And so, or inflation, it's going through the roof right now because the federal government decides to print trillions of dollars. And what do they think is going to happen? All the money you're holding on to, US dollars, is worth a lot less for your family. So we need to, these are all solutions we can bring to Illinois.
Jesse Sullivan, your website real quick in 10 seconds.
Yeah, jessesullivan.com. Please go visit. Check me out. If you're frustrated and fed up with our terrible politics in this state, then let's join together and fight back to save Illinois.
Again, Jesse Sullivan, Republican vying for the GOP nomination for governor. June 28th is the primary. Greatly appreciate you taking the time with us this morning. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It is Springfield's Morning News, now 8 o'clock.